welcome to our unit on the fall of Rome. Now, before we get started, we're going to go through this in an outline form. I'm going to ask that you either have 3 colors that you take notes in. So I'm going to be using green, pink, and white. And you can even take notes and then highlight afterwards, and you'll have the video to go back and reference, what you need to highlight, where you need to highlight. But it is going to be important, and it's going to help things stick in your mind a little bit better. So before we get into the modern day connections of how Rome has impacted or left its legacy to modern society, we need to understand why it is Rome fell. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So Caesar Augustus. Caesar Augustus ended 100 years of war. Now the war, it was a civil war, but it's not like the American, we're not talking about the American Civil War. This is a European civil war, and he expanded the boundaries of the Roman Empire. The other thing you need to know about Caesar Augustus is that he died in 14 CE. CE just means Common Era. So Caesar Augustus brings about this peace that the Roman Empire had not seen for over 100 years. And the people at this time, they could never have imagined that their massive empire would one day collapse. All right, so as we look at problems in the empire, there were 3 problems that plagued the empire that would lead to its demise. The first one is political instability. The next one would be economic and social problems. And then finally is going to be the weakening of frontiers. So let's go ahead and dive into political instability. One of the issues within political instability is the peaceful transfer of power, because we have times when the emperor is going to die. And so we have to figure out, how are we going to get a new emperor and have it done in a peaceful, amicable manner? So they couldn't do it well, which is one of the reasons why there was so much political instability in ancient Rome. So there was this problem of how to transfer power peacefully from one leader to the next. Because this was a consistent problem, what we see is there's a particular group that is going to help make those decisions. The group that's going to help make that decision is the Patronian Guard. This particular group is the emperor's personal army, or his private army. And what they're going to do is they're going to be the ones that are going to choose the new emperor. Now the problem here is the fact that this particular group is going to choose someone that's going to benefit them. It's not going to be somebody that they believe to be beneficial to the entire empire of Rome, but it's kind of like picking your best friend to be in charge, because then your best friend is going to take care of you before they take care of anybody else. So it's in your best interest to pick the person that's going to benefit you the most. The next thing that we need to look at is the economic and social problems that Rome faced. So let's take a look next. As I said, Rome is going to face some economic and social problems that's going to lead to their demise. Now, to finance Rome's large army, the citizens are going to have to pay some pretty heavy taxes. Now, the taxes are going to be what's going to lead to a lot of distress placed upon the Roman citizens. The other thing that's really going to happen here is trade with other countries is going to suffer. Because of a weak economy, trade also suffers. One of the other factors here is going to be that because people aren't able to pay their taxes, people are not going to be able to continue to have jobs because people can't afford to pay employees. So we're going to see an increase in unemployment. Now, a lot of this isn't to say that there wasn't any money in Rome, because Rome still had families who were very wealthy. The problem is that many of these wealthy families, they're going to be employing slaves as well as cheap labor. So a lot of the families who are used to making a certain amount of money are no longer going to be able to stay, say, in the country. So let's take a look at this. Wealthy families used slaves and cheap labor to work on their large estates. Now, the smaller farmers are not going to be able to compete with this. And so these smaller farmers, or these smaller owners of smaller farms, they're going to go to the city to look for work. But the problem that they're going to find is there are so many people who are coming into the city that now there aren't enough jobs. So another reason why we have a rise in unemployment. We know that Rome suffered economic problems, but they also suffered from social problems. So we see growing corruption within the government. And then because of that, there's a decline in the spirit of citizenship. People who are proud to be Roman citizens. So there's a growing corruption and a decline in the spirit of citizenship. The other social issue that's going to plague Rome is the fact that their roads have become unsafe, and there's a rise in crime. One of the next problems that's going to face Rome is going to be the weakening of their frontiers. The huge size of the empire makes it really difficult to defend. also, because of the size and how spread out the military is, what we have is communication takes a really long time. So because something happens in one part of the empire, if it's going to dramatically affect another part of the empire, it may take up to 2 weeks for information to reach this side to this side. So it's hard to communicate with generals very quickly.